Hey guys, LootWizard here with another video on Gems of War, and yes, it is that time of week again. We have another Soulforge video here. We have raid boss event, new weapons in the forge, and troops. So let's go check all that good stuff out. Going to the Soulforge, and let's check out the weapons over here. Now we have Slay the Bells and we have Radiant Jewel. The Slay the Bells is a Pan's Veil weapon, and this week, the kingdom for this week is Pan's Veil. So if you do want to get the Wild Queen that's in there, we can take a look at that. It's definitely in my top 10 mythics to get. So it's a really good mythic. Now for Radiant Jewel, this is specifically a weapon that's now out for the raid boss event, so we can get that with gems over there instead of spending diamonds in here. Now scrolling down, there's another weapon way at the bottom that is for wild folk allies. This is a pretty decent weapon because of the fact that there are a lot of good wild folk allies in the game. A lot of good wild folk troops, I should say. But I think Yasemin's Pride might be a little more useful as a weapon because it eliminates all armor from an enemy, and usually weapons that do that are pretty good. Now, I will say this one I don't think is as good as things like Rope Dart. What's the other one? Mang, obviously, is going to be better than this. But Mang, everybody has that. You'd get Mang just leveling up. But Rope Dart and Trickster Shot, that's the other one I was thinking of. Those two are definitely better than Yasemin's Pride. However, Yasemin's Pride is still pretty good. What it does, it eliminates all armor from an enemy and then gives all allies life boosted by the armor eliminated. So it's a very good survival type of weapon. And no matter how much armor the enemy has, let's say you're going into a high level delve, this weapon will eliminate all that armor, but then it will turn it into life for all of your allies. Now, there are certain allied troops that do have a damage bonus based on how much life they have. So if you're running those kinds of troops, this weapon would be a good one to go with. So only 300 diamonds to craft this one. Honestly, that's pretty good because most of the Doom weapons that I see show up in here are somewhere around 800 to 900 diamonds. So I am going to recommend that if you do have the diamonds to spare, go ahead and pick up Yasemin's Pride. But I will say, if you don't have Trickster Shot yet, and if you don't have Rope Dart, you might want to just pass on this one for now. But if you do have those and do have the diamonds to spare, I would pick up Yasemin's Pride this week. Now, moving on to troops, we'll go through the summoning stones really quick here. I don't like to spend too much time on these, but I don't want to pass up anything in here that you should try to get if you don't have it. For Blue Day, there's nothing I can see there. Now, for the green, I would say Sea Troll is something that if you don't have it, you probably should try to get it because there's a really good looping team that goes with Sea Troll. So that I would say is probably worth picking it up if you don't have it yet and you're somewhere. If you're really low level, I wouldn't suggest going for it, but if you're somewhere between like level 500 and 1000 and you don't have Sea Troll yet, you probably should try to get it because it will double the number of blue gems on the board. That goes really well with a lot of giant teams and weapons for the Titan class. So now moving on to red. Nothing really there. Yellow. No. Purple. I will say that Moon Rabbit is a good one to have. It's one of the better empowered troops. It's very useful for quite a few team combinations. And the fact that it does give life to all allies instead of just like one ally. And it does bless the first troop in your team. So, but it does give life to all other allies. So I would say the Moon Rabbit if you don't have it. And again, if you're like a higher level, somewhere around like 500 to 1000, you don't have Moon Rabbit, I would say if you have the jewels to spare, try getting Moon Rabbit. And going for brown. Yeah, nothing here that I can recommend. So then legendaries, there's nothing really that great here. We have Celestasia, which is kind of a support troop, but I don't think it's not near as good as something like Divinia. So, Sylvanamora is a pretty decent legendary troop, but I don't think it's worth crafting. Garuda, not worth crafting. Dullahan, not worth crafting. No, none of these legendaries are the ones that I would consider crafting, and I usually don't recommend legendary crafting, but there's a couple of them out there that I would say if you're like level 1000 and you don't like, for example, if you don't have Divinia, if you don't have Gorgatha or Yao, those are like the top 3 that I can think of legendary troops that if you're a level 1000 or more and you still don't have one of those, if it shows up in here, I would consider crafting one of those, but these do not fit my category for that. Moving on to the Mythic Troops, we have Abyssnia, which is really not a good Mythic Troop at all. Then we have Ketras the Bull, which is one of the best Mythic Troops in the game for various things, for level 12 Explorer, for Delves, for PvP. It has a lot of great scaling to it because it does splash damage to an enemy boosted by its attack, life, and armor, and has a half of all of that. So you have 3 different stats here that you can boost, and it will take a half of that and add it to the damage, which actually is pretty powerful. So like I was talking about before with the Osman's Pride weapon, where it can eliminate the armor of one enemy and then give life to all allies in your team, that would increase the damage of Ketras the Bull. So, and it's on the lower end of even mana cost for a Mythic Troop. The lowest is 20, so sitting at 22 mana cost is pretty darn good for how powerful this troop is. One of the things that it doesn't have going for it, though, is there's no mana generation with it whatsoever. However, there is another plus to it, and that is you don't need to have any of it traded in order for Ketras the Bull to be really, really powerful. There are some Mythic troops that the traits are very important for really making the Mythic, getting its full potential of power. This one, it does gain 2 attack, armor, and life when matched red gems, which obviously helps you get more damage out of the troop, but it's not game breaking at all. And other troops that go well with Ketras the Bull are things like Divinia, a legendary troop that will explode gems on the board, which is mana generation, but it will also give life to all allies. So troops like that do boost the damage there of Ketras the Bull. That's what makes it really good. Then we have Arachnean, Weaver, and Umanath. So Arachnean Weaver is also a pretty good Mythic troop, although I think it's a little less down on a tier list, in my opinion, than Ketras the Bull, just because its damage doesn't have the kind of scaling that Ketras the Bull does. So that's why it ranks a little lower for me, but however, Arachnean Weaver is still a very powerful Mythic troop. It's definitely within like the top 15 Mythics or so. Web all enemies is very important. Web reduces the magic damage to 0, and then it deals true damage, and you can boost this here a little bit by using all purple troops, for example, in a team. It gives you a magic bonus. You can increase this by leveling up your kingdoms and gaining extra magic power. Also, by getting medals, so you can increase your magic here. There's different ways you can increase that magic, but it's not going to be as easy or even as powerful as the damage increases that you can get with Ketras the Bull. But it does that true damage to the last 2 enemies. If an enemy dies, it explodes 15 gems, so that's really great because of the mana generation, but it does have to kill an enemy. So what I suggest is usually pair this troop up with something like Life and Death. That's a weapon that does true damage to the last 2 enemies. Secrets of the Crypt also does that, and there are a couple of other troops that do true damage to the last 2 enemies, and that you want to cast something like that first so that the Arachnean Weaver here, it's within a kill range of that enemy, so that when you cast this, it does cause that 15 gem explosion. Now, this is one of those Mythic troops that doesn't need to be traded to be powerful, but certainly trading it fully is going to increase its power a lot. So it has Stealthy. It cannot be targeted by single spells until it's the last troop alive. It's immune to status effects, Devour, and Mana Burn. And then finally, it has a 75% chance to summon a Web Spinner when an enemy dies. And of course, there needs to be an empty spot available on your team for that to even summon. but a web spinner is one of the most powerful skull damage legendary troops in the game when it's fully traded. So that's a pretty awesome combination, and it is the lowest mana cost of mythics at 20. So that's also a factor in what I think about it as well. Really good mythic there. Umanoth is kind of a lackluster mythic troop. One, it only has a 20% chance to dodge skull damage, and you want to put this troop at the top of your team. That's really what it's for, because it will place a hunter's mark on enemies when doing a skull damage. That means when it does skull damage, it will do double skull damage. Now, it does have some kind of magic ability here where it does damage to an enemy boosted by all of their skills, and it's a 2-to-1 ratio, so we have half of all of their skills is going to be added to the damage of the spell here. If that enemy dies, you will gain 10 attack and create 12 skulls. So again, it's all about increasing the attack damage here and creating skulls to get that double skull damage. So one of the great weaknesses, though, of Umanoth is that it only has that 20% chance to dodge skull damage. It does not have any other way to mitigate skull damage to itself. So that's one of its great weaknesses. And of course, if it does get entangled, and there are quite a few classes that have root trap, which means it will be entangled if it's in the first spot right away from the start of the battle. So you know, it's not that great of a troop considering its weaknesses. But yeah, so how I would rank these is Ketras the Bull is the most important mythic troop this week to craft here. Arachnian Weaver is second, and Umanoth is third, and Abyssnia is a very far last fourth. Even though Umanoth isn't great, it at least it does damage. It's more useful than Abyssnia. So yeah, that's the order that I would put those in. So that's pretty much it for the Soulforge. So let's go over and check out the kingdom here. Pan's Veil is the event kingdom this week. So if you have been saving up your event keys and you do want to get the Wild Queen, it will be in the event keys this week. There are a few good troops here in Pan's Veil. Let me find the kingdom here in the list. Pan's Veil. So the Wild Queen is a really fantastic mythic troop. I ranked it in my recent mythic tier list as an S tier mythic because it's a low mana cost. It generates mana for itself. It creates skulls, but it steals attack. You don't even have to have it traded in order for it to be really powerful. It's an elemental and a wild folk, so it can start with 50% mana if you do include the legendary troops for the 50% start mana on those type troops. So that's really amazing there. So yeah, King Selnus here is one of those troops with the start 50% mana. You will not get the underworld wild folk troops that are for Pan's Veil like Luna. You won't get that in the event keys. You will have to go down and do shards. But as far as troops here, I would say Wild Queen is the number one that you want to go after. If you don't have King Selnus yet, that might be something that's useful for you to get. The other legendary troops here are going to be Starflower and the Silent One, which really aren't as powerful as I prefer Luna more than those two. But Bunny Nog is another legendary, but it's, in my opinion, it's not good at all. So, but yeah, that's those are the troops there that you should go for with your event keys. Really quick here, I can show you a couple of teams with Ketras the Bull and one with Weaver. And obviously you can make up a lot of different team combinations with these troops, but this is one that I really like to use with Ketras the Bull. Of course, it does require Rage Reaver, which is a weapon for Wild Plains. It does create red gems boosted by Tauros allies, and Tauros is the Shaman class. So if you do upgrade the traits on the Shaman class, you will get 50% starting mana for all Tauros allies. So these Guardians, the Ferocity Guardians, are really great for Ketras the Bull because every time you get a 4 or 5 match, they will increase 4 to all skills on Tauros allies. that means that Ketras the Bull's damage is going to be increased every time that happens because its damage is boosted by its attack, life, and armor. So that's another good reason to have Ketras the Bull, because you can combine that troop with ferocity and some kind of mana generator. It doesn't have to be Rage Reaver. You can use Flamifer. You can use even Mountain Crusher if you want. You just won't be generating red. You'll be generating the brown, but that's for Ketras the Bull. So you do have that possibility. Now, a second type of Ketras the Bull would be something like this with the Yasmin's Pride weapon that I mentioned earlier. Right here in the top spot, and I recommend using Titan class or some kind of class that does have the rock solid trait, a talent rather, so that you can, when you match brown, you can get a barrier. But this right here will add life to all your allies. Divinia will also add life, and that will increase the damage of Ketras the Bull. That's going to be your heavy hitter in a team like this. But this might be a team that you could take into delves at high levels, and that might be successful there with Ketras the Bull. Now, Weaver has quite a few different team combinations that you can use, but this one does work for me occasionally here when I do PvP or whatever. I like Life and Death with the Monk. I know a lot of people use the Orb Weaver, but I like the Monk because it has rock solid, and since you are going to be using brown to fill up your Life and Death, you might as well have rock solid on that. Plus, Life and Death is going to be stealing life, and that's an extra layer of defense. Now, Tulio here is a great mana generator. You can choose a color, and then it will enchant all allies of that color and give 6 mana to them. So as you can see, I have 3 allies that all have green, and so we're just going to, once we fill up Tulio here, then we can select green, and it will enchant and give mana to Arachnean Weaver and the King Avlorn. And King Avlorn is in there simply to give all elves 50% starting mana, and since Monk is an elf, Tulio is an elf, and Weaver is an elf, all those are going to start with 50% mana in a team like this. So those are just a couple of team ideas for those troops and the Yasmin's Pride weapon. Now let's go check out the this new troop here, the one that we can get with our glory in the shop. So weekly event, and for 300 glory we can get 2 of this troop, and we can get an arcane lava trait stone. So if you do have classes, you do have some legendary or mythic troops that you need arcane lava trait stones for, now would be a good time to purchase a bunch right now in this glory shop. So what does this guy do? He's called the Saleni Guard Pansvale troop. He will steal attack from an enemy and shift it to armor, and then it will barrier all wildfolk allies. So it could be useful simply for the barrier all wildfolk allies. It's not a horrible troop, but it's not amazing either. So I'm just going to get it. I may use it, I may not use it, but I'm still going to get enough here to get my to get it to Mythic, because that'll help me keep my kingdoms powered up to as highest level as I can. Let's see, where is resources? Spoils of War. Ever since they changed where those things were, I'm still a little bit goofed up on where I go for those. Anyway, I like to get those every single week because I like to collect these event keys, because then when there's a mythic troop that comes along for that kingdom that I don't have, I can just spend a bunch of event keys and hopefully get lucky and get one. So now let's go check out the raid boss event. Obviously, since Pansvale is the kingdom for this week, we're going to be using Pansvale's troops. First of all, let's go to the shop and let's buy a few tiers here. This is the weapon, Radiant Jewel, which will be generating mana for allies, Pansvale allies. It will be creating a mix of 6 green and yellow gems for each Pansvale ally. And the color that it is using is red and purple. So we may use this weapon for a team. We'll see here. But we're going to buy up to at least the weapon. And then we can go check out the weapons upgrades too. Because there might be something good in there like Silence or Enchant itself, something like that. So this was a wild folk team that I had laid out already. Luna is a great legendary troop that you can get down in the underworld, and it's kind of like a lesser version of the Possessed King because it will explode a random gem when matching yellow gems. So the Possessed King explodes 2 random gems every time a 4 or 5 match. So this is kind of like a lesser version of the Possessed King in that sense with the exploding. I do like it for that. Now, Glaive of the of Many Goats is the other weapon here that we saw on the Forge. This is Wild Folk allies, and the new weapon that we got is specifically for Pan's Veil. So we're going to need to use the Bard class to generate the most mana that we can from that. The colors were purple and red, so I will select those. Let's see if we can find it here. Radiant Jewel. So here's the upgrades. Let's see what it's got in here. Cleanse itself, silence the first enemy. Okay, so, and then give 1 mana to all allies. We got some good stuff here. I like cleanse. I like silencing the first enemy. Those are really great things that you can have in there. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. And we might as well use this. It's going to generate green and yellow, and those are the colors that I really need for the Wild Queen and for Luna. We are using the Bard class because the Bard class is considered a Pan's Veil. Right here you can see this is the kingdom that it's for. And since we're using this type of weapon, Pan's Veil allies, we want to generate as much mana as possible. That means every troop should be from that kingdom, including your class. So yeah. I'm probably going to go with this right here. I do have double green, yellow for the banner just because I want to fill up Luna as quickly as possible. But I could change that for some combination with that weapon just to get that powered up. But we did buy the explosion and the enchant potions, so it's not really going to be that big of a deal. Because that's going to give us a lot of mana there to fill everything up. And of course everything's going to start with half mana because we have King's Illness down here. So that's really good too. Now, early on like this, 1 cast of my Luna is just going to decimate the entire team. So these are going to be some quick battles. I'll try to get as far as I can here in this video. I think I got about maybe another 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes that I can stretch this video out. We'll see how far we can get up in this event for this raid boss. Now, you don't have to use the Bard class, but that's how I'm going to generate the most mana for that. But if you do want to use a different class, that's totally fine. You just won't generate as much mana if you're using a weapon like this. But if you choose to go a different route with a different weapon, let's say you just want to use something totally different than a mana generating weapon, that's completely fine. And you can get class XP for a different class. In my case, I probably will eventually do that. Because I already have Bard at level 100. So there's really no reason for me to continue to try to level it up. But we'll use the weapon here just to see what it does. It's going to do that. It's going to generate a bunch of that green and yellow mana. But one thing to consider with those types of weapons is that they have diminishing returns because they're going to generate the most mana when you have an entire team. If you do not have an entire full team, then it'll generate less mana for every ally that dies on your team. So, for example, if that weapon, your hero, is the last troop left on the team, and it's one of those types of weapons that generates mana based on the allies, troop types, things like that, then you are going to be generating almost no mana at all at that point. So that is something to consider when you're thinking about using one of these weapons. But I have the Bard class at level 100. It's one of the first classes. I think it was the second. I think I got Archer to level 100 first. I didn't actually focus on Titan when I first started playing the game. Even though Titan did exist back then. But I was so new to the game. I just and And it did cost, like, I think it was like 35 gems or something like that it cost to switch your class before like a 24, 48 hour period. It was something like that. So I didn't change my class often back then, and there wasn't that many that were released. There was Bard, Archer, Assassin, Titan, Warlord, Oracle, you know, a lot of those types of classes. I should have leveled Titan first though, but I just didn't know enough about the game. But I wanted to level the a Bard class early on because I really had a few good Wild Folk troops that were yellow. And when I realized that the Bard actually, once you fully trade it, all yellow allies gain 1 to all stats at the start of each turn, I thought that was such an amazing ability, and it still is useful, no doubt. So that is, I do use the Bard class sometimes, like in Guild Wars with other yellow, on like an all yellow attack day, I'll use Bard sometimes. But yeah. So, raid boss, we finally got this guy here. Now, this team will probably work for a little while with the raid boss when he's got this lower health like this. But honestly, we're going to want to switch it up with something different once we get to higher levels. And of course, it's going to summon a troop here. No problem. But I'm thinking in the shop here, we should have got a Godslayer troop. Okay, so we only bought up to, well, we got one Godslayer there, right? So let me edit team here. Let's even see what the Godslayer is. He kind of snuck in there. It's not this troop because that was the glory one. So it should be for this kingdom. I don't see it though. It says that I should have bought one. That is so weird. Okay. Well, let me go back to the shop. I mean, I'm probably just going to buy the next tier anyway, because I should. Alright, we'll do this. Godslayer, where are you? Okay, so we got a portrait. Where's the Godslayer? I know Satyr isn't, Siren isn't, Selene Guard isn't. This is not the Godslayer. Blade Dancer is not the Godslayer. Elwyn is not the Godslayer. Oh, okay, so Copernicus is the Godslayer, and I already have it to mythic status. Must be a troop that... Must be an event I already did a long time ago, and I already ascended this guy. So that's interesting. So it's this guy right here. He does extra magic damage to a boss. Steals attack. Yeah, so instead of the Wild Queen, we could go ahead and put this in there, but then this weapon doesn't generate any mana for the Copernicus thing. So, in a situation like this, I would say you could probably do something like, just change up the class, you know. Since we want yellow for our Luna, we could go Stormcaller, and then as for a weapon, I mean, I could go Mountain Crusher with the weapon, but we could also do something like Dawnbringer. I mean, Barrier's not going to save us, though, from the raid boss. So, and if I'm going to do that with the Stormcaller, I should do double yellow, green. But yeah, we'll try this team a couple of times. I mean, Mang or Trickster Shot is probably ultimately going to be something I want to throw in there at later levels. But of course, there's a Raven there. We want to get him as soon as possible, but We'll go ahead and cast Dawnbringer, and then, of course, it's going to summon a spider. And this just got webbed. We'll cast it on him anyway there. We'll see. It's too bad I just don't have anything that explodes the board, because when you have a storm like this down here, it really helps when you can explode the board. Anyway, we'll use this right away on the boss. Since it's mythic there, it's just going to destroy it in one hit. So I'll probably end up using this team for a little while, and then I'll switch to something like Trickster Shot or Mang, so that we can really take out the raid boss pretty quickly. And yeah, that should be that's going to be my strategy anyway. So, alright guys, that's it for this Soulforge video this week. So hopefully you guys got something out of this, and thanks for watching as always, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.